Man, what an epic conclusion to such a great trilogy. Which one are you talking about? I'm talking about The Lord of the Rings, of course. Brothers and sisters, my name is Adaris and welcome to the review of Thor Ragnarok. So Thor Ragnarok is the third and final chapter of the Thor trilogy. And if you're gearing up to an epic conclusion to the Thor franchise, then I'm sorry to disappoint you. Now don't get me wrong, this isn't a bad movie per se, it does have its own strength, but it does miss the mark quite often. So the movie starts off with that Thor is in... where is Thor? I believe it is one of the 9 realms. It's kind of a hellish planet. And he's on this planet, or this realm, to find some information about Ragnarok. Because he has heard that Ragnarok is coming. From where? It isn't important, it's just that he knows that it's on the way and he needs to find a way to stop it and prevent it. So Thor does that and then he goes back to Asgard, and it is here that we find out what Loki did with the throne of Asgard in his grasp. Because as you remember in the last movie, Odin wasn't Odin, it was Loki in disguise, and we don't know what happened to Odin. So Loki has finally grasped the throne, and I was kind of eager to see what he would do with it, but it turns out that it was just for some lazy jokeness thingy. And by that I mean he erected a big statue of himself as Loki, and he made plays of his heroic death, and that's about it. He wasn't really a ruler. He didn't use his new acquired throne for anything other than being a lazy ass. And that's the main problem with this movie, is that it uses every opportunity it has to make a joke. And yes, I know that Marvel movies are often funny and lighthearted, but I'm gonna get to that in a moment. Let's just continue here. So Thor takes Loki back to Earth to find Odin, and we find Odin and something happens with that interaction and meeting, and then Hel comes, or Hela, I believe it's Hela in English. Hela comes and she is here to take over Asgard, and she managed to throw Thor and Loki to the most outskirts of the universe, where they land on this planet. There is some kind of a big junkyard where everything thrown into some kind of wormholes that don't lead anywhere, they all end up on that planet. And Thor is captured and he needs to get back to Asgard because Hela is doing some bad shit up there. You can kind of guess what it is, but she is wreaking havoc on Asgard. So he needs to get back there, and there's only one way he can do that. He needs to be a gladiator and fight the champion to get out of there, and being the god of thunder, of course he can do that until he sees his opponent. Yeah, it's a big green fella. And from there on, the movie's about him and Hulk trying to get back to Asgard to stop Hela from destroying Asgard. That's the movie. Kinda. Okay, before I get into my dislikes about this movie, what I liked about the movie is the way it incorporates Hulk into the story. It doesn't feel forced at all, but it does shed some light on what happened with Hulk in that quintet at the end of Age of Ultron. He just got away, and we find out that he might have activated stealth mode so they can't track him, but it turns out that he got sucked into a kind of a portal wormhole and ended up on that planet. And there he has been doing what he does best, smashing people, and he has become the greatest gladiator on that planet. We also find out that Hulk has not transformed back to Banner since that incident, and that was 2 years ago. So he has been Hulk continuously for 2 years, and in that amount of time he has learned to kind of speak. It's kind of like a toddler, 2-year, maybe 3-year-old toddler, their speech pattern and vocabulary. It's what he has, and it makes sense because now he has actually had time to developed speech. And he has become a bit more intelligent, and he also become more ripped. I mean, it's not like he wasn't bulky in the former movies, but he had kind of a little guts, bit of a stomach there. And he just was a big hulking man. But here, he's like a bodybuilder. They just trimmed down the fat on him, and it kind of makes sense since he has been a gladiator and continuously fighting for the past 2 years. The other thing that this movie does wonderfully is the boss, the big baddie Hela. And what I mean about that is there's been a tendency in the former Marvel movies to have just a faceless bad guy who is apparently strong and fearsome, and the heroes need to do some crazy shit to take the bad guy down. But we never get a sense of how strong and powerful the bad guy is. And I especially miss that in Age of Ultron. Why do we need the Avengers to take down Ultron? When you think about it, yes, I know he had the connection to the internet and could manipulate everything on Earth, and he had a billion clones and something. But Ultron himself, why was he such a big threat fighting against? We never got any sense of that he was that powerful by himself. You need an extremely powerful enemy to call the Avengers and say, you need to deal with this. Not a single one of you can do this on your own. Here, however, you see why Hela is the goddess of death. I mean, she brings along a lot of death. She mows down everyone. I mean everyone. Not a single person can take her on at all. There's some point where a lot of Asgard's guardians attack her all at once, not just one at a time so she can make some fancy. No, everyone at the same time throws down with her, and she just knocks everyone out. Not knocks, she kills. She is shown how powerful she is. It is shown that not a single person can take her on. You need a group effort to actually beat her, and points to Marvel for doing that. And I hope they do it the same with Infinity War with Thanos. We need to see that the bad guy is not just a bad guy, but is actually an opposing threat. So, and finally, I will say that this movie is extremely colorful. And not that I missed that in the former movies of Thor. It was kind of grand when you got to Asgard, because it makes sense in what they're trying to establish. And since this is kind of medieval inspired, of course, the colors will be dimmed down a bit. But here it's like whoever was in charge of the coloring just did a lot of coke and just went crazy. I mean, every color just pops in your eyes. It is beautiful to look at, and really kind of interesting what they did with the colors. It is actually more colorful than the Guardians of the Galaxy, and I think the reason why is because this movie takes mostly place in the outskirts of the universe, and we have been shown that out there the color scheme and just the architecture and the world in general is extremely different from what we were used to down here. So that's also a good thing. But there are some bad things in this movie. What don't I like about the movie? Well, first of all, Odin's role in this movie is almost nothing. You're told about what he has done in the past, but his role in general is just exposition, and that's about it. And that was a bit of a bummer, because in the former movies he did seem like this old wise man who had a lifetime of experience and was this gentle king that you kind of wanted Thor to be. But here is just, he pops up and in 2 minutes he leaves the movie. Then that's about it. I also didn't like the interaction between Loki and Thor that much. And don't get me wrong, there are some good scenes in here, but you need to take their whole relationship into consideration. And I know they made up in the former movie because he died, but now he is back, and of course Thor is pissed, but it's kind of brushed aside just for some comic. Okay, I'm gonna get to the bottom of this. My biggest gripe with this movie is that it's too funny. And I don't know what you're gonna think. Why is that a problem? Because the movie uses every fucking second to tell a joke. And I don't mind laughing at a superhero movie. Not at all. The Avengers movie, especially the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, is pretty much just a space opera comedy. But when you have an important scene where there is a moment, the moments where you kind of get a lump in your throat and just really take it all in, and you can sense that this is an important moment for a character, it's some character development. You know those kind of scenes? Well, they are always in this movie ruined because someone, either the person that's having the moment or some fucking bystander, needs to crack a joke or make something funny anecdote. And especially when you think about this is the final Thor movie. This is where the heavy punches needs to be. We were even told that this would be the most important movie in the whole phase 3 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And after you've done watching it, you just go, what the fuck was important about this movie? Yeah, there's something that happened in the third act that's kind of important, but that's only important for Thor and his Asgardian family and people and all that. But other than that, no. And then maybe it's because that in the after credits, mid-credits scene, there's a little scene that happens that sets up what Infinity War is going to be about, and then you go, oh, that's the reason. But that can't be the reason why the movie is important. That's just the little fucking scene. And maybe it's most important because you find out what Hulk's and Banner's relationship is slowly becoming, but why is that important to the whole phase 3? It's not important. So you end up with a movie that sets up, especially in Age of Ultron, where Heimdall is blind. I don't know. He has this white eyes, and Thor had this lightning coming out of him, and you were told that there's an impending doom coming to Asgard, and Thor needs to prevent this, but why make that when you can just have a comedy where they just laugh everything over, and there's no risk in any point of the movie? I mean, sure there are some dangerous episodes, but you never feel risk for the characters because they're always laughing and cracking jokes. And I mean, and I know that I shouldn't be getting this upset about it. I mean, it's just a comic book movie, but you're closing off the Thor trilogy, the franchise, and I know he will pop up again in Infinity War Part 1 and Infinity War Part 2 or Avengers 4 or whatever it calls. I know that, but you still need to look at his trilogy. What I liked about Civil War and Iron Man 3 is that yes, they continued the story for the whole franchise, the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe, but they also finished up the trilogy. And I know you might go, well, how did the Civil War finish up Captain America's trilogy? Well, in the end, he wasn't Captain America anymore. He accepted that Bucky was his friend and he needed to help him no matter what the cost, even though he acknowledged that the cost had been great and dire. But here it's, yeah, there's some big consequences in the end of the movie, but and that's, I won't spoil what happens, but that's where Thor has a moment. And while he has that moment, a side character throws in a joke-ish, and the whole thing is just ruined. And it's the same thing about the whole movie, and at no time did the movie feel like it had any sorts of gravity. It was just lighthearted, and when you think about it, Ragnarok is the end of the Norse mythology. I know if you read the old Norse mythology, then you will know that after the Ragnarok, everything will get reborn. It's a circle, it's not just an end. But that's not the direction Marvel wanted to take, which is fine, I don't mind that. But since this is the end of the Norse, the Asgardians, why make it a joke? Shouldn't this be some heavy shit? This is where Thor finally finds out what it means to be the god of thunder. There's also something happening to him that will get some consequences in the later movie, I think. I don't know, but I think. You never get some closure between him and Loki at all. Yeah, you just don't get any closure. That's my main problem. And all these jokes also make it that the action scenes there are is not that entertaining. I mean, they are funny to look at, they are interesting to look at, but when it's always a joke on a joke and a joke, and no situation seems dire and serious except for a very, very few, then I just don't see the point in making a final chapter in a light-hearted but still grand trilogy. Now, after that transform there, it may seem that I didn't like the movie, as a fact I actually hated it, but that's not the case. I enjoy it fully. It does make some interesting choices with the characters, as we know, which in some points does kind of fuck them up, especially Banner. When you see Banner on the screen, you actually see him. It's just not Banner. It's a joke character that just happens to look like Banner, but it's not Banner. Banner is that quirky science guy who's rather intelligent, and here is just jokes on jokes on jokes. And the fights there are actually quite entertaining to see, even though there's not that serious in it. I mean, the fight between Hulk and Thor as the gladiator, it was entertaining to see, even though, and I know since it is a Thor movie, they need to make Thor more equal to Hulk, but Hulk is just nerfed in this. He's not that strong. When he punches and kicks Thor, he's not flown that far. But no, the movie is interesting. It does have some interesting additions to the Marvel cinematic universe. It does provide some history for who Odin was and the whole Asgard thing. It also shines a light on why there's 9 realms, but when you look at Guardians of the Galaxy and the whole galaxy in particular, kind of go 9? Why only 9? It doesn't seem to cover it all. It also kind of expands the universe in what happens at the edges of the universe. However, this is a fine movie. It's just not the strongest in the series, even though that Thor 2 had the worst acting in this Marvel Cinematic Universe to date. It still had these more direct, heavy moments, and it did them justice compared to this one. I don't know which one I like better. I like them for different reasons. And nothing all, it's a great opportunity to crack open some beers or sodas if you don't drink alcohol and watch it with your friends and just have a laugh. I will go with that. So, Thor Ragnarok is worth watching in cinema, entertainment guaranteed. So, Thor Ragnarok, have you seen it? What did you think about it? Or what is your most favorite Thor movie? Or maybe even Marvel movie? Whatever you think, comment below and let me read your thoughts. And as always, until I see you in the next video, remember to stay awesome. Bye!